He was the big brother. He was a beacon. He was one of the most multifaceted, talented men. So gentle.
Raven-Symoné is falling apart right now, and the world's watching. The same girl who lit up our screens as a child star can barely speak through her tears. But why is Malcolm-Jamal Warner's passing hitting her like a truck?
Even staying close to my family. I like to pass on what I've learned, especially to someone as young as her, because she is our future.
To understand that, we gotta rewind to the late 80s. Back then, everyone was glued to the Cosby Show, watching little Raven rush into Malcolm's arms like it was a picture-perfect family moment.
I do not remember as soon as the camera starts. Something clicks off, and I do what I'm trained to do.
But what the audience didn't see? The pain behind those smiles. Behind the scenes, young Raven was struggling hard. She wasn't just acting, she was escaping. Hollywood at the time was crawling with twisted adults who preyed on child stars. It was bad. Raven's mind had to disconnect just to survive it all. She was exposed, scared, and completely unprotected. But Malcolm, he wasn't just her co-star, he became her shield. He saw what was going on and made it his mission to protect her from the dark side of that industry. Now he's gone. Gone after trying to save his own daughter in Costa Rica, a hero till the very end.
Authorities say the actor was reportedly on a family vacation in Costa Rica, swimming when he got caught in a strong current, and they say he was pulled out to sea.
And the truth Raven just dropped about their connection, it flips the whole story on its head. When 3-year-old Raven Christina Pierman first walked onto The Cosby Show, set in '89, she had no clue she was stepping into one of the most dangerous places a child could be, Hollywood. This wasn't some toddler playing make-believe in sparkly outfits. This was a real little girl carrying her whole family on her back. Raven wasn't on set for fun. She was there because the people around her needed her to work. Rent had to be paid, dreams had to be funded, and there was no space for baby tears or slip-ups.
Understanding that this is a job you can't mess up. This is not for fun, but it is fun. Make sure you respect people. Don't do this, don't do that. It was a lot of rules in place.
At just 3 years old, Raven already knew her childhood wasn't hers to keep. She wasn't just a kid anymore. She was a pro, expected to nail her lines, hit her cues, and smile on demand. While most kids were still figuring out potty time, Raven was learning how to survive on set like a grown-up, and it gets worse. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, Hollywood was basically a playground for shady adults with power. The rules were weak, supervision was sketchy, and there were hardly any real protections in place for kids in the industry. Behind all the glitz, there were way too many young stars being left unguarded. For every child that made it out okay, so many others didn't. Raven's situation was even riskier because she wasn't just talented, she was electric. That screen presence, unmatched. Producers knew she was a gold mine, but that kind of star power made her a target. Everyone wanted a piece of her, and not all of them had good intentions. Even as a toddler, Raven's brain was doing what it had to do to survive. When the cameras rolled, she disconnected. Straight up dissociation. Her mind would check out while she performed, then snap back when it was over. That's not just acting, that's trauma survival. It's something that happens when a kid feels completely unsafe, overwhelmed, and out of control. The fact that a 3-year-old was already showing signs of dissociation says everything about how messed up her work environment really was. No toddler should ever need mental survival tools just to make it through a day on set. But into that chaos stepped Malcolm-Jamal Warner. He was only 19 at the time, still just a kid himself, but he'd already been swimming with sharks in Hollywood for 5 years, and unlike many of the adults on set, Malcolm didn't turn a blind eye.
What I thought was always interesting about Raven is, because she came on the show like at 3-4 years old, being that young, not knowing how to read. So, having to remember what to say, when to say it, and how to say it was always really amazing to me.
He saw what was really going on. While most people just saw a cute kid nailing her lines, Malcolm saw the truth. Raven was dragging a weight way too heavy for someone who couldn't even read yet. She was expected to memorize pages of dialogue, hit perfect timing, keep it professional for hours, and never mess up. The fact that she could do it, that was wild. But the fact that she had to, straight up heartbreaking. Malcolm gave her something no one else thought to offer, real protection. And not just the kind that keeps you from getting hurt physically. He gave her emotional backup. He gave her psychological safety. In a world where producers saw Raven as nothing more than a cash cow, Malcolm saw a scared little girl who needed someone to have her back. To him, she wasn't a paycheck. She was like a baby sister. And that shift in perspective, it may have literally saved her life, even if neither of them knew it at the time. Hollywood's been messing this up for decades. From Judy Garland being pumped with pills to keep working, to all the horror stories that later came out of Nickelodeon and Disney, it's clear the industry's been failing its child stars over and over again. And Raven, she was stuck right in the middle of that storm. In this kind of twisted environment, Malcolm's protectiveness wasn't just some nice gesture. It was a full-on shield. Without him there, Raven could have been left wide open to the worst kinds of people, especially the ones who had free reign behind the scenes. What Malcolm gave her was a line of defense, and not many child stars got that back then. The connection between Malcolm-Jamal Warner and Raven-Symoné went way deeper than their roles on screen. Audiences thought they were just watching Uncle Theo hang out with his little step-niece Olivia, but behind the scenes, a powerful bond was forming. Malcolm, a teenager who knew how shady Hollywood could be, saw a little girl who needed someone to protect her, and he stepped up.
I still have a great relationship with Malcolm-Jamal Warner, and I don't even know why. I just know that I adore him. Can't really tell you the genesis of it, but I'm sure he helped me when I needed it.
Here's where it gets even more real. Because Raven had dissociative episodes during filming, she doesn't remember every moment with Malcolm in detail, but trauma works in strange ways. And the feeling of being safe, that stuck with her. Her body and mind remembered that he was someone who made her feel okay, even when she didn't have the words for it. Malcolm's protection came on all kinds of levels. He didn't just keep an eye on her. He made her feel included in a world that often treats child stars like props. In an industry where kids are usually isolated, pushed to the side, or treated like little money machines, Malcolm made sure Raven felt like family. And the way he did it, so smooth, so natural, no big shows or announcements, he just did it. He watched out for her, checked in, and made sure she felt seen and safe. Sometimes that quiet kind of protection hits the hardest. This kind of natural, low-key protection, it hits harder than any official rule book ever could. When someone like Malcolm-Jamal Warner had your back, predators had a much tougher time getting close. Industry insiders say Malcolm wasn't just known for his talent, he was respected for being a straight-up professional who didn't let anything shady slide on set. While some young stars got labeled difficult for speaking up, Malcolm built a solid reputation. He kept things real, held firm boundaries, and didn't entertain any nonsense. That kind of energy made people think twice before pulling any questionable moves. When Malcolm was on set, you knew the vibe was locked down. Raven joined the Cosby Show right when Malcolm was moving from child actor to grown performer. That's key. He was old enough to see the dirty side of the industry, but still close enough to those early years to remember how scary and confusing it could feel as a kid. That made him the perfect person to look out for someone like Raven. But while he was holding it down for her on set, Hollywood was falling deeper into a dark spiral. The 90s were a free-for-all, an industry full of shady adults hunting for vulnerable young stars. And Raven, her rising fame made her a target.
There's so much pressure to feminine beauty.
Well, you look very attractive tonight.
Thank you. There's a lot of rules in place. How cute can you be? How can you be without showing my sex? I knew that this can't be talked about.
There was this pressure to be endlessly cute and obedient, a trap that created a blurred line predators could use to sneak in. And the system, it was broken. Families like Raven's thought they were handing their kids big chances, but in reality, they were walking them into an industry built to exploit. The power balance was all wrong. Kids had no control, parents were outmatched, and the industry, it just kept turning a blind eye. Back then, kids in Hollywood had nobody truly fighting for them. Their parents were often blinded by fame or tied up financially, and the studio execs, they held all the power. Raven was especially at risk because of how insanely successful she was. Too successful, too fast. After the Cosby Show, she blew up, scoring record deals, and eventually becoming the face of her own Disney Channel empire. But with that level of fame came non-stop access to high-level industry figures. and not all of them had good intentions.
Doing an album at 5 and staying in the studio until 2, 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're 5 years old knowing that this is the next step in your career. So
some of them were straight up dangerous. Imagine a 5-year-old working until 2 a.m. That's not ambition, that's abuse. That's not just crossing the line. It's dragging a kid way past it. And yet, everyone around her expected her to keep going like it was normal. That's how deep the exploitation had gotten. It wasn't even seen as wrong anymore. Thanks to the Me Too movement, a lot of this dark history finally started coming to light. Investigations started peeling back the layers, revealing that in Raven's early career years, the kids' TV world was crawling with predators who were protected by silence. Dan Schneider, who ran some of Nickelodeon's biggest shows, was finally booted in 2018 after a storm of accusations about how he treated young actors. Then there's Brian Peck, a Nickelodeon dialogue coach, who was convicted for abusing a child actor. And those are just the names that hit the news. For every one of them, there were probably dozens more who never saw a courtroom.
Awareness of my was prevalent to me at 12. I didn't want to tell my parents because I knew I couldn't say it out loud.
What's heartbreaking is that Raven felt like she couldn't tell anyone what she was going through. She carried that weight all by herself. And that kind of isolation, that's exactly what predators look for. When a child is made to feel like speaking up will end everything they've worked for, it opens the door for manipulation. It sets the stage for grooming. All it takes is one person saying, "Your secret's safe with me." And suddenly that child thinks they owe them everything. When you look at everything Raven went through, Malcolm's role in her life becomes even more powerful. He wasn't just a co-star. He was a barrier between her and a system built to chew up kids like her. His presence on The Cosby Show set made it a whole lot harder for shady figures to get her alone. And as Raven got older, Malcolm stayed in her life. That steady, respectful friendship gave her something rare in the industry. Safe, solid male energy. The kind that helped her see the difference when other people started crossing lines.
I can't talk for periods of time, and I don't know how to get my words out, and I just go into my brain laying down, and sometimes I'll cry.
What Raven went through wasn't just child star stress. This was something way deeper. The trauma hit so hard, it led her to dark thoughts most adults wouldn't even know how to process. Her mind was breaking under the weight of a machine that expected nonstop perfection from a little girl who was barely old enough to understand what was happening to her. And what did the industry do? Blame her, blame the parents. That's the pattern. When child stars spiral into addiction, breakdowns, legal trouble, Hollywood acts shocked like it came out of nowhere. But no one wants to talk about the broken system that caused it. That's where Malcolm stood out. He got it. He'd been through the same pressure, same spotlight. He knew what that kind of fame could do to a kid's mind, and instead of turning away, he stepped up. He recognized the signs, kept his eyes open, and when Raven needed it most, he showed up. To the outside world, Raven's career looked like a dream come true. Platinum records, starring roles, sold-out shows. But behind all that shine was a child being slowly crushed by a business that demanded everything and gave back nothing. No real safety, no real support, just bright lights hiding the damage. When Raven transitioned from The Cosby Show into her solo career, she didn't just leave behind a hit series, she lost her one steady line of defense. Malcolm-Jamal Warner had always been her quiet protector, but once she stepped into the world of Disney and music, he couldn't be there to block out the chaos anymore. Even though they stayed close, Malcolm couldn't be on set to guard her from the shady behavior she started facing as she moved deeper into the spotlight. And the toll it took on her, it was massive. Raven's dissociation, those mental blackouts, got worse as her career pushed forward. This wasn't nerves or stage jitters. This was her brain screaming for help. Her mind was literally checking out to survive what was happening behind the scenes. That kind of mental disconnect only happens when your surroundings are so overwhelming, so unsafe, that your own body becomes a place you have to escape from. And that's exactly what Raven was living with. As she entered her teen years, the pressure hit harder. The industry wanted her to stay that squeaky clean, lovable Disney girl, but also wanted her to be glammed up and grown enough to keep the attention on her. That confusing push and pull wrecked her sense of self. She was constantly flipping between being marketable and innocent, with zero space to just be herself. By that point, Raven didn't even know who she really was. She'd been performing so long, playing characters nonstop, that her own identity got buried under everyone else's expectations. And the body shaming, that started early and never let up. From her Cosby Show days straight into her Disney years, execs and PR teams were on her case about everything. Her weight, her clothes, her look, always watching, always judging. For a teen already battling self-doubt, that kind of constant scrutiny was brutal. It didn't just hurt, it left scars. Raven's struggles with body image, anxiety, and depression weren't random. They were the result of years of being picked apart, controlled, and stripped of any room to grow on her own terms. And those mental wounds, they didn't fade. They followed her for decades. The craziest part? While Raven was being held up as a role model for millions of young girls, she was secretly battling deep psychological trauma behind the scenes. That kind of double life shows just how out of touch the industry was with the real human cost of child fame. No one seemed to care what it was doing to her as long as the cameras kept rolling and the money kept coming in. Through all of it, Malcolm-Jamal Warner stayed close, even from a distance. He couldn't always be there physically, but his calls, his advice, and his emotional check-ins became a lifeline for Raven. He reminded her that she mattered as a person, not just as a paycheck. That kind of steady, respectful support, it was rare in her world, and it might have saved her from falling even deeper into mental and emotional collapse. The pressure on Raven to keep a flawless image while hiding real pain created a psychological nightmare. She couldn't ask for help, couldn't speak her truth. Doing so could have ruined her career, and more importantly, taken down the financial lifeline for her entire family.
Even if I got sick, I'm taking this to the grave. But that eats at your soul. That eats at your soul.
It got so dark that Raven believed dying silently was safer than telling the truth out loud. That's how deep the fear ran. That's how thoroughly the industry had trained her to protect its image, even if it crushed her in the process. Malcolm's presence during that period wasn't just comforting, it was powerful. He modeled something she rarely saw: what a healthy relationship with an industry figure could look like. No pressure, no manipulation, no hidden agenda, just respect, care, and real boundaries. In a world where most adults around her were either exploiting or ignoring her, Malcolm stood out. Looking back now, knowing everything that's been exposed about Hollywood's dark history, especially around kids, it's clear that Malcolm-Jamal Warner's protection wasn't just helpful, it was vital. Malcolm-Jamal Warner likely saved Raven from going through even worse than what she already endured. His presence acted like a wall, one that made it way harder for predators to get close. And even after the Cosby Show, his steady friendship gave her a real-life example of what safe, respectful relationships should actually look like. That kind of influence helped her spot danger when it came knocking.
He was the big brother. He was a beacon. He was one of the most multifaceted, talented men. So gentle.
The emotion in Raven's tribute to Malcolm wasn't just about losing a friend, it was deeper. It was the heartbreak of someone who knew she'd lost her protector, the one person who had her back when nobody else did, the one who kept her grounded while the world tried to tear her apart. In the past few years, Hollywood's ugly truth has finally started to surface. From the scandals that rocked Nickelodeon to shocking revelations about shady agents and producers, it's become clear that almost every child star was walking through a minefield back then. And Raven? She was right in the center of it all. What made Malcolm's protection so powerful was how real it was. He didn't throw it in people's faces or act like some savior. He just showed up. He included her. He made it known, without even saying much, that no one was going to mess with her while he was around. And that kind of quiet strength, way harder for predators to work around than any formal rule book. The fact that Raven came out of all that with her core self still intact speaks volumes. Yeah, she dealt with trauma. Yeah, she struggled mentally, but she avoided the most destructive paths. No drug spirals, no full breakdowns, no exploitation horror stories like so many others from her era. Malcolm's quiet, consistent presence didn't just protect her, it may have been the one thing that helped her survive it all with her soul still in one piece.
When I turned 18, I knew something's going on, so I started going to therapy, and It's dissociation.
Raven deciding to start therapy at just 18, that's a major sign of strength and serious self-awareness, especially in a world where most child stars never even realize they've been traumatized, let alone seek help for it. So many keep pushing through the pain without ever naming it. But Raven had the clarity to say, I need support, and that move may have saved her life in the long run. Malcolm-Jamal Warner likely played a big part in that growth by showing her what emotional maturity looked like, by setting boundaries and staying solid. He gave her a real example of healthy ways to handle pressure and pain. He wasn't just there to protect her, he showed her how to protect herself. Since Raven's time as a young star, the entertainment world has made a few steps forward, mostly thanks to brave survivors who started calling out the abuse and demanding change. But let's be real, the power structure that allowed all this exploitation, it's still in place. Young performers today are walking into the same kind of traps Raven had to escape from.
Focus is really for the kids. I tell them it's important to know who you are, and it's important to take control of your self-worth.
Raven using her voice now to protect others? That's a direct reflection of Malcolm's impact. Instead of turning cold or shutting down after everything she survived, she chose to give back. She's out here helping the next generation stay safer because she knows how crucial that protection can be. What makes Malcolm's death even harder to take is the timing. He passed just as the world finally started digging into Hollywood's darkest secrets. His perspective, as someone who lived through it and stepped up for others, would have been priceless right now. His voice could have helped lead this fight for change. But even though he's gone, the way he shaped Raven's journey and the choices she's making now keeps his legacy alive. The pain Raven carries isn't just about losing a friend, it's the weight of everything she's lost. First came the betrayal by industry insiders who used her, then the silence from the people who should have stepped in to protect her. And now, losing Malcolm, the one person who had always been her anchor, feels like the final crack in a foundation that was already crumbling. But this grief isn't just personal, it's bigger than that. It's about the way trust, safety, and innocence were ripped away piece by piece. Malcolm-Jamal Warner's legacy goes far beyond what we saw on screen. His real impact came in the quiet, steady way he showed up for someone who desperately needed it. He didn't wait for applause. He didn't post about it. He just did the work. He used his voice, his position, and his presence to protect Raven in a world that kept trying to destroy her spirit. And because of that, she made it. She didn't just survive, she rose, and now she's doing for others what Malcolm once did for her. That kind of quiet heroism, that's the legacy that truly matters. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what you think about Malcolm's impact and Raven's journey. And of course, see you in the next one.